Watching report by our colleague Jinemiram right there, highlighting the plight of pensioners across Nigeria. Professor, I'm sure you've watched that report, and you are actually even in that report. Um, Everyone in Nigeria apparently have a story about this pension matter. Is there any end in sight about this issue?
Thank you, Mr. Signature TV.
And Charles.
Honestly, Charles,
Yes.
honestly, the video reports are touching, they are gloomy, they are heartbreaking. How can one say? We are in Nigeria. A lot of things are not going the way they should. Every day in our churches, in the neighborhood where we live, you see these old men and old women coming up with one complaint or the other. They can't buy their drugs, they can't feed, they can't access the medical care. And all these things are mind-blowing.
You know, what makes it even much more crazier is that the funds that one contributed while they worked, these funds are supposed to be available, but yet they are not being paid as at when due. I mean, something that's as little as 18,000, 25,000, 30,000. You see people even queue up to even collect those monies. You're a professor of law. I wanted you to expand further on the legal implications. How do people who are in this space go ahead to access their funds? What do they do legally? I'm sure you mentioned a few things, but I'm yet to even hear that somebody won at the courts, you know, taking the federal government to court for owing them or holding their monies, because this is a criminal offense.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Charles. There are a lot of judgments where retirees won.
Okay.
But the only problem we have in Nigeria is that we have this apathy to go to the courts, to access the courts. Most times the funds are not there for you to hire a lawyer. And these are the things that contribute to retirees and pensioners not being able to move to the courts to access the courts. There is little or limited resources of funds within their reach to access the court, and other clocks in the wheel of justice. Moving to the court, the number of years the pensioner will stay before the judgments are given. So these are some of the problems, but be that as it may, the plight of pensioners in Nigeria is something like that the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Onohen, stated in CBN, Central Bank of Nigeria, against Amal. Amal went to court as an ex-staff of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and he said that the reason for coming to court should not even have arisen in the first place concerning our senior citizens, because these people, they have worked, and the laborer deserves his wages at the due time. So moving to the court is not only the problem. You go to the court, you have justice from the court, but what is the length of time? And the person is still languishing. And these are as a result of corruption in the system. The pension fund administrators, these are the people who have this money, because the money, they've all been contributed. The contributory pension is there from the Pension Reform Act. Employer contributing 10%, the employee 8%, that gives you 18%. So when these pensioners, when they retire, why can't they access this fund? That's another question. Why can't they access it?
You know, we understand, you know, like my colleague rightly mentioned, that many retirees struggle to access their pension on time. You heard of the lady that said that the brother passed away and didn't get it. You know, what are the biggest roadblocks in the current system, and how can these be redressed or even addressed in the first place?
The major challenges.
Redress is better.
Yes, the major challenges are that one, the National Pension Commission, their duty is to regulate, supervise, and see that pensions are paid by the pension fund administrators. You know, once you enter into an employment, you ought to open a retirement savings account. We call it the RSA.
Yes.
With the pension fund administrator. You can choose any administrator of your choice, and it is now the responsibility of your employer to do his own contributory pension. Then, if there is any problem with the pension fund administrators disbursing this money or paying this money as and when due, it is the duty of the retiree to make a complaint to the pension commission within your division or within your locality. There are pension offices, that is the National Pension Commission offices scattered all over the Federation. You lay a complaint there. And by laying that complaint, they will take it off because it is their duty. Sometimes they bring these employers to book. By the time they threaten them with court cases, they pay those monies. In a situation where they can't pay, it is now their right under Section 16, 1(2) of the 1999 Constitution to bring an action before a court of law, and under Section 36(1), like we likely said the other time. So, under Section 173 of the 1999 Constitution, for those in the federal service, these pension rights are elucidated from subsection 1 to subsection D. And particularly in subsection 3, it says that even pensioners, even when they retire, with the current inflation rate that we have in the country, their pension ought to be reviewed every 5 years. Their pension ought to be reviewed every 5 years. So at times you see that, like the minimum wage we're talking about now,
Yes.
assuming this minimum wage sells,
Yes.
we ought to go back and review the pension, because these pensioners, they are no longer in the active service.
Yes.
So they are not going to benefit from the minimum wage. But under the provisions of the Constitution, Section 173 and Section 210, for those in the states, you ought to review. Once you do a review of the minimum wage, you at the same time have to do a review of the pension fund you pay to retirees.
Yes.
Do you understand? And it is a constitutional provision that you must add it. Every 5 years, there must be a review. Like that the former Justice of Nigeria said, that in Nigeria, what we see is a downward review of the pensioners' funds.
Why is that?
A downward review. You won't even pay them what you ought to pay them.
Yes.
They cut their pension.
Is that legal?
It's not legal. These are corruption we're talking about.
So what is actually, because I'm curious to know what's causing this problem, because you kept mentioning constitution is in the constitution.
Yes.
So it's not in one borrowed book.
No.
So is it that they are not seeing it, or people are not pressurizing because, or people don't know?
Yes. One, people don't know. The awareness is not there. The awareness is not there that you can move to the courts. Like what we saw in your distance to this morning, the NSTARS protest.
Yes.
You were asking, why is it that it's only 3 people? And Mr. Charles was answering, these are the people who went to court, who made an application before the court. And the court is not a Father Christmas to give you what you have not asked for. You must come before the court.
That's the ECOWAS court, actually. Because
For human rights violation.
Yes.
No, for pension is the state high courts, the federal high courts.
Yes.
In fact, the court that has jurisdiction for pension is the National Industrial Court for employment issues. Before the third alteration clause, it was the high courts, the federal high courts, but with the third alteration clause of the amendment to the 1999 Constitution, it is the National Industrial Court that has jurisdiction over pension. Yes.
You know, with these continuous issues we're having with pension, people who are working, who are young,
Yes.
wouldn't want to even contribute. Instead, they will just, make some monies, buy properties, and, at least before they retire, the properties will probably most of appreciated, and then they can, use that as a retirement plan. Yes, you could say it's constitutional, but when even the people who act in that stead of a constitution are not, working with the constitution, Why should I want to contribute
In the first
to the pension fund when I know what at the end of the day I might be robbed of my money?
And you honestly, like myself, I was telling myself that I don't want to be part of that contributory pension because I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. We're all apprehensive, even those in the public and the civil service. We're all apprehensive, but because it is a mandatory provision of the Constitution
Yes.
under the Pension Reform Act, you don't have a choice.
So you're telling me it's mandatory to contribute my hard-earned monies, but it's not mandatory for these
them
guys
to
to
pay.
pay me when it's due.
That is why when they fail to pay, you move to the court.
So can someone who is not a pensioner actually sue them, on behalf of the pensioners? Because
Where is the locus standi?
What
it's
if
the
you were
fact that
a
you're a good
brother, a
citizen
sister,
and
or
you can, having watched the documentary we did watch.
Except you are mentioned as the next of kin.
only?
Yes.
So if you're a brother or a sister, or maybe
No,
you can't.
there is no locus for you to sue.
Wow,
Yes,
wow.
there is no locus. You must be a next of kin, and assuming the gratuity is not paid, we call them, this is a person who is not a party to a contract cannot bring an action, except you fall within the exceptions mentioned by the law. You are an agent of the so-called pensioner. You are that is under the assurance policy. You're mentioned as the next of kin. That's the only way you can come in.
Okay.
Wow.
Because from what I see, it's largely dependent on transparency.
Yes.
And what they are doing, there is nothing transparent about it. What role, and we live in the age of technology, what role can technology play in improving transparency and accessibility of information for pension contributors? Like my colleague said, how would I contribute when I'm not going to be paid? So what role do you think technology can play in improving
Honestly,
transparency?
I must give kudos to the federal government.
Why so?
Because some of my friends who are retired from my university told me reliably that they've been paid their pension and gratuity. The federal government is trying.
For the university.
For the not for the university. For the university, I know for sure
Okay.
they're trying. They pay their pension. My friend retired last 2 years. Within 6 months,
They paid.
they paid.
Wow.
And she has started receiving her pension monthly.
Okay.
Yes, she told me, because I asked her, how are you faring? I said, no, my pensions, they come as and when due.
Do you think it's because she did something extra, like she had longer legs, like...
No, she
because-
didn't. No, not that at all. She told me that of the university is smooth. I am sure of my university, and I'm sure where we have problem is mostly with states.
Oh, states.
Yes. With federal government, we don't have much trouble. But with states, I cannot say for sure what is happening in the state, because at times you see that some states they might even go up to 10 years. In fact, one of the governors of the southeastern states, let me not mention the name, he had never worked as an employment person, not his parents, not anybody in his family. He said that, why are you paying pensioners where you can pay when you have not paid those that are still in the active service? That was his statement. So that is so worrisome. Do you understand? For federal governments, I know in my school, those that are retired 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they've all received their gratuity and their pensions are running smoothly.
Okay, so I think there was a time recently, I think it was during, whether it's COVID-19 or one of those years where
Yes.
they said that you can come and ask for 20% of your pension or 35% of your pension, and then that's if you're out of work at the time.
Yes.
So, and then inflation also caused that. So can you explain that system, that process at the time?
So, okay, like in my school, there's this contribution that we make under the cooperative. So during that COVID year, ordinarily, you don't have to assess until you're leaving the employment of the university in that cooperative. So during that COVID year, because people were hard up and there was strike at that time, they now told us you can assess 20%. So the same way, pensioners can assess their pension in times of emergency. Do you understand?
It must be an emergency.
There must be an emergency, like COVID was an emergency. Okay. So like now, I see my balances on my pension deductions. I asked them one of the times, can I go and take some money from there? And they said no. It must be when you must have retired. And what is the reason for this? The reason is that during old age, the government don't want you to be a liability to anyone. Do you understand? So that you can take paltry sum from your pension and take care of yourself, assuming there are no persons to take care of you, no children, no siblings, no family relations. Do you understand?
What if I go out of job and I want to assess all of it before the mandatory years of...
You cannot.
I can't?
Yes, because...
My own money?
Yes.
And if the person dies before then?
If the person dies, the family, the next of kin can assess.
Okay, so please, is this something you can explain for us? I understand there is something called PENCON and
Yes.
PCAD.
Yeah.
Can you explain
The
that differently?
PENCON is the National Pension Commission, abbreviated as the PENCOM.
Okay.
It is a commission that sees to the smooth running. They regulate, they supervise what the pension fund administrators do. Who are these pension fund administrators? They are designated companies or banks that receive this money. Like you have the First Guarantee, you have the Access Pension Administrator. So your monies are deducted at source. The 10% from the employer, the 8% from the employee, they are deducted at source and paid into that pension fund administrators.
Okay.
Yes. So it is from these administrators that you're going to assess your fund when you retire. They will pay you a certain percentage, and then other months they will pay you a certain percentage until you die.
I want to be clear on this.
Yes.
Some of these pension bodies are private, some of those banks.
Yes.
I know I don't want to mention the name, but there are banks that are private organizations.
Yes.
What's the delay? What causes that delay? Why is it that after, parting ways with my monies for so many years,
Yes.
these banks that are still available, that are still alive, I'm not able to access these monies, knowing that I know I have monies there?
Yes.
Like, why is it from the federal government? Because it cannot be from the federal government. The deductions have been made
Yes.
from the salaries when it was paid every month.
Yes.
So what is this from? What's the delay? Because it's a private firm. You can't tell me that you don't have the money. It's not possible.
Yes. The delays are the lack of transparency we talk about.
From the banks?
Yes.
Or from the government?
Not the banks. They are companies that are linked to the banks, like you call First Guarantee. It's not First Bank.
Ooh.
Do you understand? The Access Alliance, they are attached to these banks, but they are not the banks, strictly in the sense of it.
What is
So
the bank that
housing the
deducts
money,
it?
Yes.
The people housing the money is not the bank,
Not,
but these
not,
organizations.
no, it's not the bank. It's like First Guarantee Pension,
Uh-huh.
Access Guarantee. That is, they have a link with these banks. Like in the university, we have what we call Nupenco. Nupenco is a company. It's an administrator. Do you understand? It's an administrator.
It's a private firm.
Yes, it's a private firm, but they have link with certain banks where they dump this money.
No, like my colleague said, he said
They are investors. They invest your money and do business with that money.
Good.
So-
It makes it easy.
Yes.
So you invest my monies, and then when I come to get my monies after many years,
Yes.
you give me
You
back.
will give
Why?
me-
Exactly. It's
So-
corruption. It's corruption. And
Beyond
that is why you have that right to move to the court and then bring them to action.
sorry, excuse me. Beyond corruption, I
Yes.
believe is wickedness, because
Part of it.
you have my money,
Yes.
and the bank shouldn't even claim ignorance of what's happening, because I worked for a private bank, and you collaborated with another firm to keep my money. Okay, now I'm to get it from, because it's the bank I worked for, it's not the other people. So you are to also ensure that I get it, because they got my money through you. It's
There's
most-
no contract between you and the bank. These persons are
As
investors.
administrators.
Yes, you are the administrators.
But is the bank is the one that collects money.
that connects.
Not the bank.
Oh, it's
The administrators,
that
the
collect
administrator
money.
that collects the money.
Okay, so considering the economic climate,
Yes,
everything,
the administrators.
are there any concerns about the investment strategies used for pension funds?
Sorry, come again. with your
Considering
question.
the economic climate or what's happening,
Yes.
are there any concerns about the investment strategies used for pension funds?
No, there are none. Because you can't tell the administrator the kind of business they will do. What you know is that they're going to do a legal business. They're going to invest your money and then do legal business. They won't do any business that is illegal. Do you understand? Because if they do any illegal business, then government...
But is it with the permission of the person that they do this business with?
Because you are making that contribution, you ought to know that they will not leave the money just like that. Do you understand? They have to do business with it so that they pay you interest on that money and still keep the business. Do you understand? They're not going to take your money and then invest and then put it in a bank and then leave it like that. No, they're going to do business with the money.
So, okay, so I'm going to ask you this question in
Yes.
another way. How can we better integrate informal sector workers into the pension system and ensure their social security after retirement?
Yes. Like what we have for the federal workers, the civil servants, is also applicable to private sectors because the Constitution said once you have more than 3 employees, you're going to open a contributory pension for the person. If the employee does not open, it is a constitutional provision. If the employee does not open, within 4 months of that employment, the employer ought to open the pension fund for the employee, such that he could make his own 10% contribution.
So, can I open, okay, I'm working here, can
Yes.
I open privately with a pension whatever?
Administrator.
Yes,
Yes.
you know, that I trust,
Yes.
apart from the one my company is
Your
collaborating with.
Your company cannot even force you to choose an administrator. It is your right
Okay, to choose any administrator.
to choose any administrator, and then you present to your employer. Yes.
Just you know, just explain to me as like someone who's getting into
Like when we,
job.
like, excuse me, like
Okay.
when we did ours, when the pension whatever came on board newly, we had more than 10 pension fund administrators, and you were given the right to choose anyone that you like. So when we saw First Guarantee, we said, oh, these people are linked with First Bank, and First Bank is reliable. So we all took the First Guarantee.
So there are ones that are not reliable. How do you know which particular one that is not reliable? How do you check on them so that you know that your money is also safe?
So for us at that time, we just said, oh, this First Guarantee is an ally of First Bank, and First Bank is reliable. That was just the only parameter. We didn't know anything.
Okay, so
Okay,
the
you
other 9 was
presumed-
just
Yes,
And
but some other persons chose the
other
other
ones.
ones. So like those that have their monies at Access Bank, they choose Access Alliance
Okay,
and stuff like
not,
that.
Not to
yes.
mention names, but you know, choosing these banks and
Not
choosing,
banks,
sorry,
administrators.
these administrators.
Yes.
It's I believe all of you worked based on presumption,
Yes, we worked on presumption.
and these organizations have to be registered, right?
Yes,
Under
they're
what?
under the Companies and Allied Matters Act.
Oh, I mean,
Yes.
as pension.
Administrator, and they have to register with the National Pension Commission.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so if you were to advise a young person who is getting into the workforce of Nigeria, given the problems that we are faced with this pension issues, what are the things you would tell this young person?
One of them is for us to continue to pray for our country, Nigeria. We've been praying.
Playing with my money, right?
Yes, to continue to pray for our country, Nigeria, for them to, like my sister said, Swahili, that this is wickedness. Empathy for those that have worked for you. We should show empathy.
No, what would you advise me, someone like me, that who is going to leave the people who are the ones
Okay,
being wicked?
okay, the
Advise me-
retirees.
No, not retirees.
Okay, a
Somebody
new
who-
person.
new person who's getting into a workforce, who's also being paid, contributory pension.
Yes.
What would you be advising them as the case is in Nigeria? Because I mean, you'll be seeing your monies count, but you can't assess it.
It's actually the word I've been avoiding. It seems like a scam of some sort.
Honestly, my advice would be one to the federal government. If someone does not want contributory pension, why not pay the person his
Directly.
entire emolument?
Yes.
But because it is a constitutional provision, there's nothing you can do. Do you understand? You must do the contributory pension. Because the federal government will remit theirs, 10%, then 8% will be deducted from your salary at source. And once you're entering into the workforce, you are asked to present your pension for the administrators.
Do you think that the federal government...
So there's nothing you can advise the person. The person cannot go contrary to the law.
But
Right.
are they abiding by the law?
Like I said, for my school, those that had retired, I'm sure about 2 to 3%, they've been paid. Even one of my friends that the husband died before retirement, she had assessed all, she's the next of kin, she had assessed all the monies due to the husband. The man was a late professor, I'm sure of that one. So I don't think that with the federal government, there is not much problem.
with the federal government.
Yes.
So what role do you think they can play in making sure that these people do the right things at the right time? Because I just feel that the federal government is even handicapped. Maybe there is some sort of hanky-panky game going between these companies or these pension organizations and the federal government. Because
There is none.
so why
There
the
is
delay?
none.
Why isn't the federal government coming hard on them?
The federal government can only come in when you have assessed the courts. When you have assessed the court is the eye of the federal government.
So when you go ask the court for X, Y amount of monies of your pension, can you also ask for damages?
For sure. For sure.
So you can get much more than what
Yes,
they actually want.
yes,
Because
exactly, yes.
You must have spent a lot of money trying
Yes.
to fix the matter.
So the problem with
You can.
accessing this court is for me I need to hire a lawyer,
Yes,
and the lawyer needs to be paid.
yes.
And I don't have money to pay the lawyer.
You can assess the public defenders within your state. Do you understand? As an indigent pensioner or retiree, you can assess. Yes.
This is
And
really-
after that, assuming you hire a lawyer, you borrow money to hire a lawyer, you put that as part of your claim. And you'll be paid for hiring a lawyer. You state your claims, the specific damage, your pension, the general damages, what you have suffered, and then the claim for hiring a lawyer. All these will be
And
calculated.
because I know he has very important question to ask you, but
Yes.
if in the process of trying to go back and forth with this, suing them, taking them to court and all,
Yes.
and there is death, would you also put it down as part of the damages?
Yes. Yes. Under your evidence and under your pleadings, you state that. Such that-
Is what the next of kin does.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so that the amount of money that will be paid under general damages will be high.
Okay.
But that one will need a lot of proof that,
Okay.
that it's a probable cause. How did the money, lack of payment of fund, do you understand,
Yes.
necessitate the death of the pensioner?
Okay, we have on the phone from Abuja, Mr. Nathaniel Ohanedo. He's a pension expert. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Good morning.
Thank you very much and good morning.
Good morning.
All right, Mr. Nathaniel, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what you think are the biggest challenges of pensions in Nigeria?
Biggest challenges of pension in Nigeria.
Pensioners in Nigeria, yes.
Pensioners.
Well, as at now, government have done a great deal of work. Before, we used to have benefit pensions, and there were a lot of challenges, ranging from the fact that it's a government, only government was and the people working up the system, when somebody retires, the files cannot be found. A lot of things are missed. A lot of frauds, starting from 2004, when the Pension Reform Act of 2004 came into effect, sanity entered the system. And the Pension Reform Act of 2004 was amended in 2014. Right now, anybody working in Nigeria, provided the employer has up to 5 personnel in their payroll, the law requires that they must enroll with one PFA. But the Pension Reform Act of 2004 created PENCOM, and then PFAs were created under it. PFAs are like banks that take deposits from people that are working. So when you retire under the Pension Reform Act, as I work under the Pension Reform Act of 2014, 10% of the salary is being paid into the system from the employer, and if the employee will have 8% deducted from his or her salary, and they will be paid into the PFA. PFA is Pension Fund Administrators. So when you start working, every employee will have an account, Pension Fund Administrators. Then Pension Fund Administrators will in turn have account with Pension Fund Custodians. And these are banks like First Bank, UBA, Zenith Bank, they are Pension Fund Custodians. So they hold account for PFAs. And we have a lot of PFAs in the market.
So, with all these reforms done in the pension system in Nigeria, we still have people who are unable to access their funds. I mean, why is that? Why do we still have those issues?
As of now, you see, most state governors, they should to buy into the system. And this is a very big problem. And the workers are not doing anything. Understand me? This system is wonderful. It's working.
When you say refuse, like, is it not constitutional that the governors must sign up to that particular reform? So when you say refuse, what does it mean? Like the governors are going against the constitution?
No, you see, this is the minimum wage. Now, it's not every governor that are paying it. So Nigeria is a place where people do what they like. So the law is there. Lagos State have joined, some states have joined, but some states like Imo State have not joined. A lot of states. That's why their pensioners are suffering. So I'm telling you about the people who have joined, people on the federal level who are working for in the military. All of them are part of it. And as they work, every month they receive a lot. Because 10% that was deducted, that was paid by the employer, will enter. 8% deducted from the employee will also enter. So you have 18% of their salary being paid into their PFA account. So by the time they retire, they don't have the issue. If, for example, people retire in Vegas, which I'm handling right now, when they retire, you discover that it is very simple. The moment you drop your pay, since you have retired, you don't walk into your PFA, and then they start to process your pension immediately. But those who refuse to join the system think that the people creating problems. The case is now.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Nathaniel, I understand that you are a pension expert, and I know you've tried to do great justice to explaining, breaking down PENCOM and all what concerns pension, but in a layman's language, because there are speculations that people that retired before Obasanjo's government, or before that constitution, those that retired will not benefit from a particular sector of things. Can you, in a layman's language, differentiate between PFAD or something, and PFAD and PENCOM? And can they benefit? Can they still benefit?
Well, you see, those prior to 2004,
Yes.
there was what they call benefit pension scheme, managed by government themselves, Nigerian government. Now, this benefit pension scheme has a lot of things connected to it, things that are not good. Understand me? As I said before, you can retire and you are fine conditions. You can retire and for 5 years you not process your pension. You can retire and your pension is processed and going to somebody's S account. So there was a lot of problems associated with it. So that's why when Pension Reform Act started 2004 and it was amended by 2014, it was separated from PITA. PITA is those who retired prior to 2004. Those who retired after starting from 2007 in 2008, under the new Pension Reform Act. So those people don't have issue. Where you have issue is those who retired before 2004. And also the employers of labor who refuse to join the new Pension Reform Act. There are plenty of them. Many states they refuse to join it.
All right, Nathaniel Ohanendu, we could have continued this conversation, but I just want to say thank you for your time. Because of the fact that we're pressed for time, we may not be able to continue, but many thanks for your input. We truly appreciate.
Thank you very much.
All right, so back into the studio with Professor Nkechi Opalobi. He mentioned governors have refused to join. Do you think that these pensioners can sue the governor when he finally leaves office for refusing to pay while he was in office? Because again, you cannot sue any governor because they have some sort of immunity. So can these people sue governors when they leave office for refusing to pay their pension while they served?
The answer is yes, they can.
Really?
Yes, they can. It is a constitutional provision. Under Section 210 of the 1999 Constitution, the state civil servants, they have a pension right. Well, once there is a right, there is a remedy.
Okay.
Yes, once there's a right, there's a remedy. It's a constitutional provision. Do you understand? They can bring an action.
So is it a criminal offense?
Yes, it's a criminal offense. It's a criminal offense. Not withholding pensioners' monies is a criminal offense.
Wow.
Pure criminal offense.
What's the process in prosecuting them?
The
You're a
state,
lawyer.
yes, but the only clog in the prosecution is that because it's a state government parastatal, you must give what is called pre-action notice. And that pre-action notice must be up to 3 months before you bring an action against a government parastatal. Secondly,
a government parastatal?
Yes.
No, I'm talking about the governor himself. If he leaves office,
It's not the thing is not tied to the governor himself.
Okay.
It is to the office
of the governor.
Yes, of office of the governor. Do you understand? You bring.
But it's one that runs the office. So if he refuses, and also, so if the next person that comes refuses, next person that comes
Yes.
refuses,
The government is a continuum. Government is a continuum. You bring an action against any person.
Is there a
You can bring an action against the governor while in office.
Yes,
because of Section 308. Do you understand? The immunity clause.
Okay.
Yes.
So a governor can continue doing whatever he pleases.
With the pension
Yeah.
of people.
Yes.
Why?
Because of immunity. So that
Yes.
means a governor
Wow.
is a governor because of immunity, free to kill people, steal from people, and get away with it. all
And
in the name of
that is the
immunity.
question, the reason that the Nathaniel gave,
Yes.
the pension experts, why that in Nigeria most governments, most state governors don't want to key into the new whatever. And you are asking, can the federal government bring an action against that?
Yes.
I said, no, it is not the federal government. Rather, it is the people whose rights are being violated that will bring this action before the courts. Because the law is there. The federal government, the legislature, they have legislated on the law, and the law is in place.
Well, thank you so much for
My
your
pleasure.
insights
Yes.
into this. Even though I feel really bad after this interview, I've not. I don't feel good with the interview. I don't know why, but it's just that this clause that you're speaking about, it means that someone will not be able to even access their funds. But even if you ask the person to go to court within the state, it's nearly impossible because judiciary sometimes isn't under the,
Like Mr. Nathaniel
Executive.
said, which I told you, that with federal government, we don't have problem. Because the federal government keyed into the Pension Reform Act of 2014 With federal, there is no problem.
But the
But we
states
have-
are the
But the
problem.
states, most states have not joined, have not keyed into the new pension reform, and that is why we still have problem. Then, for clearance and for clarity's sake, there was something he mentioned, the old pension scheme, the old pension scheme, the benefit pension scheme. That one was not the contributory pension. The old one is still problematic.
Okay.
Yes, and that is why you still have a lot of pensioners complaining, because all the time their files cannot be found, all the time there is no data in place to have captured their whatever. So that
Okay.
is the problem we still have. But with the new pension scheme, the contributory pension, every month you're seeing your balances.
All right.
And with these
Thank you.
balances, once you retire, you can access the
Thank you
pension.
so much,
Alright,
ma'am.
Professor.
It's been a nice time with you, even though we are not fully out of it. But we will continue next time. And this is still Signature Morning. I don't feel excited about the whole the fact that old people have to be dragged to the street under the sun.
Yes.
But go nowhere. This is still Signature Morning. We'll be right after the break.